Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Just hopping on today to have a chat about a big topic. So I'm just going to be pretty concise today and talk about a few things around it, but that is mindfulness and how it relates to mothers, specifically why it's so beneficial for mothers. And I wanted to talk about this because it's an area that I feel like is really important for moms. But it's kind of a loaded word. It's mindfulness is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and a lot of people, think different things when they think of mindfulness. So someone might think mindfulness, like I'm not a mindful person. It means meditation. It means this, and it means that. So let's just break that down and just talk about the facts, the stats, and how it can benefit moms, as I said. So let's get into it. We're going to start with what mindfulness actually means. So bear with me, I'm going to read this. There's actually two definitions that I found. So it is the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. And two, a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. So when we look at that, really it's just having awareness with what you're doing, like being present in what you're doing. So mindfulness can be done through so many different activities. It's not just meditation, it's not just breath work, although I personally love those things. There's so many different ways that you can practice mindfulness. And why it's beneficial, the studies actually show that mindfulness can help you when you practice mindfulness regularly. It can help you to manage stress, reduce anxiety and depression. You can find it easier to relax, more enthusiastic for life, and improved self-esteem. So those are just a few that I found that, there's actual research to back up. And I think those sound good for anyone, right? Like, I don't think there's anyone who's looking at those like, nah, I'm not going to take that. But let's unpack specifically like why those solutions are so beneficial for moms. Like why moms need those outcomes the most. So anecdotally, let's just talk about, okay, we go through a lot, like we do all the things, and there's no off switch. There's no off switch to being a mom. It doesn't matter if you have, someone looking after your kids while you work, or, you're always a mom. You're always on. If your kids need you, that is your number one priority. And every mom will know this especially when your kids are sick or they're in a difficult phase, teething, bigger issues when they're teenagers, whatever it is, that can be, all day, every day. You're dealing with very high stress situations. You can feel really like just touched out, overstimulated. There's so many things that we deal with. It's can be completely unpredictable. Let me just say it's also beautiful. I know we're talking a lot about, the hard times of being a mom. It's so great, but we're talking about mindfulness for moms. And then the stats also show as well, and these are crazy. So your hormones right after you give birth it's the biggest drop of hormones that any human experiences or is known to experience. So where you go from being pregnant to right after giving birth, your hormones drop so significantly. I don't think we talk about that enough. And then when you stop breastfeeding, your hormones drop significantly as well. Not nearly as much, but it's still a significant drop in your hormones and can really, affect your mood and things like that. That's probably talked about even less, not to mention all the other things in your body that are changing as you're learning to, maybe breastfeed, care for your baby, deal with all sorts of different things you've never dealt with before. The stats also show, and this is a big range, but 6.5 to 20% of moms experience postnatal depression. Now that's clinically diagnosed postnatal depression. I guess we'll never know how many women are experiencing that and not seeking clinical support for that. That's a really big range. And I want to be so clear. If you're experiencing symptoms of clinical depression or anxiety or anything else you feel like you need medical support for, mindfulness is not here to replace that. You still please go seek the right medical support. for what you need. Mindfulness is just a great tool to use in addition to that. So please get the help that you need. And 42%, that's a big number, 42% of working moms experience anxiety and depression. Again, not shocking, as if you are a mom who works outside the home, even a mom, if you stay at home with your kids and don't work outside the home, there is just so much to juggle with being a mom and having these little people depend on you so much. So why I wanted to highlight those things is because, when we look at stress and we look at ways to reduce stress, moms are just under an incredible amount of stress. And I think so often we just get on with it because we have to, right? Like, who else is going to get up and do all the things that moms do? Like, no disrespect to dads, but if your house is anything like mine, the kids are coming to you. They want mom, and you're just, you're that first contact for everything. So for me, I really notice, like, when I'm not practicing mindfulness, I notice it so clearly in just how I'm being, because I feel like I want to yell at everyone. Like, total honesty, I just feel like the smallest things are irritating me. And 9 times out of 10, I'm able to like take a step back and realize that, like, oh, I am the problem here. Like, I need to sort myself out. Everyone else is fine. Like, I just need to calm down. And then I'll take some time and, make sure I get that in. Not always is, easy to do. But I'll at least take a couple moments. But I have a bit of a funny story about me really having a realization around that. When my son Henrik, who's now 3, when he was a baby, it was his first winter in daycare. If you know that it's a really tough season. They just get every sickness. I was only working a couple days a week, but I was like constantly having to take off time from work, and it was just a stressful time, on my body too. I wasn't sleeping that much. He was sick. Like, it was just tough. And we were home and he was sick, and I was using the snot sucker. Amazing. Love the snot sucker, but kids hate it. So, I was very lovingly holding him down as I was trying to do the snot sucker. And as I was doing it, I like totally messed up my neck and this, like my upper back. And I was frozen, like could not move. Like it was just awful. I was in so much pain. So I took the kids. My stepdaughter was 9 at the time. It must have been school holidays because she was with us as well. Took the kids, got in the car, and went to see a naturopath who does acupuncture and kinesiology, James Maloney. He's amazing. If you're on the Gold Coast, look him up. And, so I'm lying on the table, and he's, putting the needles in me, doing the acupuncture, and I think he was feeling my wrist. And he's like, okay, are you experiencing anger or anxiety? And I was like, kind of having this internal dialogue, like, I don't want to be angry. Like, I'm not an angry person. So I was like, yeah, anxiety, definitely anxiety, which is probably true. It's probably both. But then as we got in the car and we were driving home, we were in a little bit of traffic, and I can't even remember like what the circumstance was, but something happened with a car around us, and I laid on my horn and just like yelled at this person. And then I kind of took a moment to reflect. I'm like, kids in the car, like, oh my God, I am super angry. I'm just like so short fused at the moment. Like, yeah, it was just such a wake up call for me. It's like, oh, all right. I needed to hear that. I really needed to hear that. Because I couldn't do anything about all the other stuff going on. I was trying my best to keep my son healthy and, making sure I was getting enough sleep, but those things were just not happening. But what I could do is make sure that I was taking the time that I needed for myself to really counterbalance all of the other stresses in my life. And I wasn't doing a good job of that. So I realize now a lot better when I'm having those, when I'm just feeling like that anger and that short fuse coming up. It's such a trigger to me to be like, okay, I need to take a moment. And, so it's not always easy. It's not always easy to find time for mindfulness. So what I've learned as well is that a little bit goes a long way. Let's talk through some ways that you can practice mindfulness. Because I think, again, we get these ideas in our head of, oh, well, if I'm going to be mindful, I need to practice yoga or meditation for 20 minutes. And that's not always possible. So if I don't have any time, I will just sit wherever I can be, even if it's for a couple minutes, and I will just sit and breathe. Like if we're talking about mindfulness, to me, breath work is probably one of my favorite tools for that because it works so quickly just by slowing down and taking deep breaths in and out through the nose, or in through the nose and out through the mouth. Like, just as an example, there's so many different breath techniques you can use. Maybe placing the hands on the belly, hand on the heart and the belly, and just feeling that breath. And even just a couple deep breaths, you'll feel the body soften and relax, the shoulders drop down. I mean, in just a couple breaths, a couple of minutes can really change your state and help you come back out of that, really stressed fight or flight state and into that more calm rest and digest state where you can just think more clearly and make decisions from a better place, and be able to take that pause, that step back, and be less reactive. I find that so helpful as a parent to a baby, a toddler, and a teen. And sometimes I need that strategy for all of them. They all come with their really amazing parts of parenting and their really challenging parts of parenting as well. So that's one technique. And I think, going back to the definition of mindfulness, it's really, like we said, just doing something with full awareness of doing. So I love breath work. I love a guided meditation. A lot of times I only have time for like 5 or 10 minutes. I have some that I've uploaded to my YouTube channel. There's so many on YouTube that are absolutely amazing. So that's a really quick, easy resource if you've got the space and the time. You can do that and just let someone guide you, and you can just calmly just sit back and relax and let your mind switch off, which is easier said than done. A lot of people think that they're bad at meditation, and it can feel so uncomfortable. Any sort of mindfulness technique can feel so uncomfortable if you're not used to slowing down. You can just feel uncomfortable in your body doing it, but it's like a muscle. It's the more you practice, the easier and the more familiar it becomes. So even if you do it at first and you're like, okay, this is not what meditation is supposed to be, my mind is going everywhere, that is so normal. Just each time you realize your mind drifting off, just come back to the guided meditation or whatever kind of meditation you're doing. And that's really the practice, seeing how quickly you can come back from your thoughts drifting away. So it's like a muscle. You have to practice. Some other things you can do are just going for a mindful walk. This is a great one to do if you have the kids. I take, the kids and my dog for a walk pretty much every evening. And I used to listen to podcasts or something, which sometimes I still do. Now my older son generally takes my phone, and that's a distraction for him. But anyway, that's a separate issue. But a lot of times I will choose not to listen to something. And actually I'm like, well, let me just walk. Let me just be with my thoughts, be really aware of my surroundings, of what's going on, in nature around me, and just be really present instead of trying to be somewhere else. Like, that's a form of mindfulness as well. You can really turn anything into a mindfulness practice if you just focus on doing that activity and leaving the distractions behind. So maybe if you're up before your kids and you're having your cup of coffee or tea in the morning, whatever you like, maybe instead of, scrolling through your phone, just pop your phone down and just sit there with your drink. Just be with your thoughts fully in that present moment and just see how it feels. Like I said, it can be really uncomfortable to start, but do it a few times, see how you go. And even if you start to get into a practice like that and, a few minutes later your kid wakes up, it's still better than nothing. It's just being realistic with the time that you have and being okay when it changes, because that does happen a lot as a parent. There's so many times where I will set out in the morning. I'll be like, yes, I'm up before the kids. I'm going to lay my mat out outside, do a bit of a yoga practice, and I'll have my baby monitor there. And I'll get like 5 minutes into a 20-minute practice and he's awake, and I've got to get him up, feed him, do all that. And it's like, okay, yes, I would have loved to have had that whole practice, but I got 5 minutes in. Amazing. 5 minutes is better than nothing. And then another way to practice mindfulness, instead of, first thing in the morning when I'm up breastfeeding my son, instead of, again, scrolling on Instagram or just sort of being mindless, I will go into an app called Morning, and you write down things that you're grateful for, what would make today great. You write down an affirmation for the day, and just doing that first before looking at any social media or anything like that, any tasks that I have to do for the day, again, just sets a better tone for the day. So there's so many different ways that you can practice mindfulness and slow down and give yourself that time to, counterbalance all the craziness and the busyness of mom life. I hope this is helpful. And please share in the comments with me, how do you practice mindfulness? What do you like to do? And then how do you fit it into your schedule as a mom? Do you have any sneaky tips that you can share with any of our other group members? I hope you're having a really good day, and I will chat to you soon.